We're not going to be afraid of sending cold emails anymore or worrying about what everybody else thinks when we send a cold email. We need money and work. And if we don't send cold emails, known as LOIs, letters of introduction, or cold pitches to magazines or businesses, we won't have any work or clients or money. So we need to get on the horse and do that. So I'm going to teach you exactly how to do that. I'm Mandy Ellis. I built a 6-figure freelance writing business, and I help other writers build high-earning freelance writing businesses that they adore with dream clients without the overwhelm, stress, or burnout. So we're going to hop right in, and I'm going to give you 6 different things that you can do to land your dream clients with cold emails. Number 1 here, you need to filter. You need to filter. I don't care if you're filtering for magazines based on pay rate or amount of bylines or how easy it is to get a pitch in there, or you are filtering for diamond clients, your business diamond clients based on revenue or the type of content they're creating or the industry or niche they're in. We need to do this. If you don't filter, it's a lot harder to get the work that you want at the rates you want. So if you're cold emailing LOIs to businesses, you need to make sure that you're using the right revenue ranges. I like at least 3 to 10 million for startups and at least 5 to 50 million in revenue or funding for mid-sized companies. That's kind of like a good zone to get started in for our diamond clients. And then with your magazines, you want to kind of pick a number that you feel good at for your rate. So what can you kind of figure out that you want to get paid for your magazine work, and kind of find magazines to support that. There's lots of resources out there. Who Pays Writers is one where you can look up rates that magazines pay. There's lots and lots of tools out there to help you figure out what magazines pay what and how to contact them, what kinds of pitches they're looking for, all that good stuff. But you have to start filtering. This is the thing. It's not just spray and pray. We're not just sending cold emails just to anybody. We want to make sure they're targeted. This is how cold emails actually get a really good response rate, is that you're targeting them to the right businesses in the right niches for the right projects for you, or you're targeting them to the right magazines for the right ideas that you want to pitch. So you have to kind of do that proven, pre-filtering process. This is something I do quite extensively with both my Wealth Lab and Runway students. But I also kind of want to know, I'm a little bit curious, have you been filtering your clients, or have you been just spraying and praying? So let me know below. Have you been spraying and praying and just sending them out? Or have you been really filtering your clients? Or are you too afraid? Have you been feeling a lot of fear? Give me a thumbs up if you felt a lot of fear over making that first step into cold emailing. I know that I felt a lot of fear, but then I realized that I won't have money and clients if I don't do it. So for me, that was a big motivator to get going. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Number two, you have to have the right subject line. I like 2 different ones. So for me, for my LOIs, I like, could you use help from a niche freelance writer? So whatever your niche is, could you use help from a SaaS freelance writer? Could you use help from a travel freelance writer? And then the subject line that I like to use for magazines is usually pitch and then the headline. So I do pitch and then the headline of the article as the subject line. This helps in 2 ways. One, with businesses, they know, could you use help from a freelance tech writer? They're like, oh, I'm in a tech company. Maybe I could use help from a freelance writer. It's an open-ended question. It's really good to help them get the LOI open. And then for magazines, they know if you're saying pitch, it's usually a pitch of a story and not necessarily a PR pitch. If you're worried that your magazine editor will think it's a PR pitch, you could use a different subject line. You can just put your headline, or you can just say, freelance idea, or you can say, headline, and then you can say from freelance travel writer or whatever. There's lots of different ones you want to use, you can use, but for me, I like to stick to pitch, and then your headline for a magazine. And then the other one is for your LOIs is, could you use help from a niche freelance writer, whatever the niche is. Number 3. So templates, we know them, we love them. They're easy to do. This is something that helps you earn more in less time. We have templates for our LOIs. I have, 20 or 30 or maybe more of them for each niche or industry that I'm in. So I'll have like a food one, and then I'll have like a food and travel one, and then I'll have a real estate one, and then I'll have like a prop tech and travel one. So I have ones that are for all the different combinations of niches or just single niches that I've had. That way, whenever I come across one of these clients, I just paste it in and move on with my life. They have different clients that I've worked for in each of those niches, but it makes it a lot easier when I have a ton of them just to pick the right one and paste it in, make a few light customizations and move on. The next one is a pitch format. I don't necessarily like to call it a template, but if I am going to use a pitch format for a magazine, they're not like the template for the LOI is just so much more. It's like so much more stuck in place. Like it's pretty similar, so you can send a lot more of them. The pitch for a magazine is like a format where you have I usually like to have like, hey, editor, I thought this story would be a good fit for X section or X, edition, whatever, if they publish quarterly or something, and then give them the headline. And then the first paragraph is identical or as close as I can get to the kind of first paragraph they've already published in other stories. So maybe they open with a question, maybe they open with a data point, maybe they open with a funny joke, I don't know, but the first paragraph is as close as possible to the other content that they've already published in the magazine: tone, style, voice, format, structure, all that stuff. The second paragraph is like, in this story, title, headline, whatever it is, I'm going to talk to these people. So I'll list the experts, and then I'll go through what questions I'm going to answer. Then sometimes I'll have a third paragraph of like extra information. So I'll need to either give them other locations or other questions or other things that I'm going to cover in the piece. And then the fourth paragraph is like 2 sentences on like, I'm a freelance writer in Austin, and like I've written for these people, and very quick bio, 2 sentences or less, and get out of there. So that's why I like it as a format, because you're always kind of changing those things. It's not always questions, it's not always experts, sometimes it's just, but 4 paragraphs is about right. Your LOI is like pretty much standard. It's pretty much that drive-through LOI that I like to teach. Hi, do you need help? I'm qualified. Here's my portfolio and stuff. If you want to hop on a call, bye. That's it. And there you kind of make some light customizations for niches. But with our magazines, we want to kind of fit that format so that we are giving the editor what they need to know, and they can see that we can write for the magazine's tone, style, personality, that we kind of get it. And we know what kinds of things are going to be put into the article, like what types of experts or what types of locations or whatever it is. And they can kind of see like where our brain is going. Number 4 here, when we're cold emailing, number 4, you have to put in your personality. Personality counts, especially with LOIs. This is something where I think it's very easy to make them robotic. It's very easy to just make it, try to make it like everybody else's LOI. But I always encourage my students to use their personality, because that's what sticks out. Anybody can just send a cold email. Anybody can send a cold pitch, a cold LOI, whatever. But when you put your personality in it, your word choices, your phrases, how you talk about projects or how you talk about a certain topic, that is key. And cold emailing, people forget that there are hundreds of emails. There are people like editors will get hundreds of emails every single week, if not thousands every single month. And you have to stand out. So you have to have some elements in your pitch or in your LOI that stand out. And your business clients are often getting a lot of emails just in general, so yours needs to stand out. And this was something for me that I did really horribly for a long time. So I sent all these LOIs that were multiple pages, and they were just very dry, and they didn't really feel like me, but I thought it was like business Mandy. But then once I started putting my personality into it and talking the way that I like to talk about projects, then people would be like, hey, this stood out in my inbox, or thank you for sending this, it really feels like you, or I can totally see the experience of working with you. Like, that's what we want. We want someone to open that LOI and really get the feeling of what it's like to work with us from the personality in those LOIs. The same thing with your pitch. Your pitch needs to follow the tone, style, voice of the magazine, but there still needs to be that little bit of sparkle in your pitch to help it stand out. And mostly that sparkle is like how you think about that idea. So it's not necessarily always your voice, unless you're pitching a personal essay or something like some fiction or poetry. But a lot of times you're putting that personality in how you're formatting the pitch and the questions you're answering and how you think about a topic or idea that you're pitching. Number five, this is something that gets missed all the time: urgency and CTAs. So when you're cold emailing, you need some kind of urgency in there, or some kind of spicy CTA, as I like to call them. So With your LOIs, I like to use the words right now. Do you need help right now? And this is something that I think gets missed all the time. People just think they're just like, hey, do you need a writer? Well, no, like that's not the question, right? It's help right now. And that really like pushes people to respond about whenever they answer that LOI, whenever they open that LOI. If it says right now, whether it's now or in 6 months, they can still answer right now. And that really helps people to respond or open your LOI. And two, your CTAs, right? So your CTA of your LOI where you're like, hey, if you want to, I would love to hear more about your needs. Let's hop on this call. That really helps people be like, oh, they care about like what's going on and they want to talk it through. And I think for me, getting a good CTA that sounds like you and really having good CTAs in your LinkedIn copy and your website as well, I think really help. And then the same thing with your pitches, right? You can have a CTA in there where you're like, hey, if I don't hear from you in 2 weeks, I'm going to pitch this elsewhere. Or you can have a CTA of like, hey, I would love to hear your thoughts. I also have 2 other angles that I think might work well for your magazine. That's always an option. But we need some kind of like urgency or CTA. Now, your urgency in your pitch is usually timeliness. Your idea for a pitch to a magazine needs to be timely in some way. And that urgency is why your editor cares about that thing right now. So it could be a new study. It could be something happening and opening. It could be a roundup that's seasonal. Like it has to be some kind of timely thing where your editor would be like, why do I care about this idea from this writer right now? So we have to kind of have those urgencies and that CTA stuff in our LOIs and pitches when we are cold emailing. Number 6 here. Number 6, you have to hit the numbers. You have to hit the numbers. There's no way around it, and you need to track stuff. So you need to have your marketing. You need to do your 50 to 75 LOIs and pitches a month, but you need to remember that if you feel a little bit overwhelmed by that, you can go to 1 hour a day. 1 hour a day of marketing. There's plenty of marketing activities you can do during that hour, but we need to do it. We either need to hit 50 to 75 LOIs or pitches a month if that's a number, if numbers are motivating for you. If numbers are not motivating for you, switch to 1 hour a day of marketing activities because that will keep you going and get the numbers in that you need. Then you can move from daily to weekly to monthly to quarterly as you build up your work and as you build up your response rate. So you need to be hitting the number of your response rate. I like 10 to 30% on average. It doesn't mean you're always going to hit that number, but that's kind of where we usually want to be. Sometimes it's sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but we want to be somewhere in there usually. And pitches, that's for LOIs. For pitches, we kind of want 10% is still kind of around the right range. 10 to 20% is kind of good, but 10% is usually the average. 10 to 20 is where we're getting good. But you need to track that response rate. You need to know how many responses you're getting, like what the percentage is, and especially number three in number 6 here, you need to know your call to client rate. So if you have LOIs and you're getting on calls with clients, how many of those calls are turning into clients? For me, I did a calendar audit years ago where I realized all these calls I was getting on were not turning into clients. And I really needed to start filtering out all of these people instead of getting on calls all the time. So you need to kind of figure out how many calls you're getting on with, like whoever responds to your LOI and you get on a call, what percentage of those are turning into clients. That's a really important number you need to know. And then you need to review your data. So how many pitches did you get accepted to magazines? How many pitches did you re-pitch out to other magazines? How many LOIs did you send over the last 3 months, 6 months, a year? What was the response rate? What was your call to client rate? What is your data telling you? There's a lot of times where people miss things in the data that's really important, especially with magazines where you could send hundreds of pitches and there could be tons of them that you could have re-pitched out to other magazines, but because you only sent it to 1 or 2 magazines, you kind of just like let them die. Collect up all those ideas that didn't get picked up by 1 or 2 magazines and find 5 to 10 other magazines you could pitch them out to. Reviewing the data is where the gems are. If you're not tracking things in a spreadsheet and you don't know who you're pitching where or where these LOIs are going and what companies they are and what revenues they have, what niches they're in, what types of content they're creating, you're missing a lot of really important data that helps you get your dream clients. It helps you move towards getting to the next level of publications or the next level of business clients. I think for me, when I was looking at my business, the numbers piece was the most important. I really didn't pay attention to the numbers enough. I was just too focused on getting things out. But once you get them out, once you get in that habit of getting things out, you also need to look at all the things that, all the data pieces, all the little pieces that then give you direction for how to kind of change your business to get to your top tier clients, your better payers, more fun work, all that cool stuff. And we also have a question. So our question here came in: should you follow up on all of your LOIs to businesses or pitches to magazines sent? This is a question I get asked all the time. Magazines, yes, follow up forever if you want, but magazines, you definitely should be following up every 2 weeks for a while, to make sure, that, editors are busy and they are always accepting ideas. So I would follow up. If there's a pitch you followed up on for quite a while, I would send it elsewhere. Like if you haven't heard anything back and it hasn't been accepted, send it elsewhere and move on. So magazines, always follow up. I don't follow up on LOIs, and here's why. If I'm sending out cold LOIs, let's say I send 100 a month, that's 1,200 a year. Let's say I'm only hearing from 10% of them. I'm not going to follow up on the 90% who didn't get back to me every single year, right? So that's 90% of 1,200 and 90% of 2,400 and 90%, of 3,600, right? I don't have time for that. But what I will do with my LOIs is follow up on anyone who answered, got on a call, or I sent a proposal contract invoice to. So with my LOIs, I don't follow up on any of the cold ones that I send unless they respond, they get on a call, or I sent them some kind of proposal contract invoice to work with them. That is something that I found to be really effective to follow up on the warm leads who have actually replied versus the 90% of cold ones that didn't get back to me. And people can get back to you. I've had people answer my LOIs in 5 seconds, literally 5 seconds, and 5 years. Someone held on to my LOI for 5 years. Okay. So we can't wait 5 years, but I'm also not going to be following up on thousands and thousands of cold LOIs every year, but I can spend time following up on several hundred warm ones that are more likely to move forward than all the cold ones that didn't get back to me. So I think this cold emailing thing, I'm hoping that we're getting to the point where you don't feel like it's been so stressful. Like you have a plan that you can move forward with, and you know kind of how to take that next step. And if you want to take that next step with a little cheat sheet, I have my free seasoned veteran cheat sheet. If you go to mandyellis.com/cheat sheet, you can grab it. It'll give you a bunch of things you can check off. So things you should ask on client calls and these marketing numbers that I'm talking about that you need to hit. It also gives you onboarding information, and it gives you questions that you should answer on your LinkedIn and your website to attract your dream clients. So if you go to mandyellis.com/cheat sheet, you can grab it. And next time we are going to talk about more ongoing freelance writing work. So we're talking about cold emailing, we've been talking about marketing a little bit, but the next one we're gonna figure out how to make things more stable. We're gonna get more stability in our business versus always being in feast and famine or really struggling to have ongoing high-paying clients. So I hope this has been helpful, and I will see you next time. Hope you have a great week.